All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Music Producer Revolution. Don't worry, I'll introduce you. This is RedX, founder of Neo Sonus, and this is the producer's kitty, the resident studio kitty, Lana. And today we're back to do some song feedback in the daily feedback thread of r/EDM production for today, I almost said June 6th. Why did I say that? June 4th, 2025. And so far, it doesn't look like we have too much going on right now. It's still pretty early. So we're going to start with Hype Machine 231. They're currently working on the engineering of this track, the mixing and the mastering, and you're wondering if anything needs work. You'll post feedback once others are in the thread. I don't care about that part. Could I download it? That's the question. No? Sometimes if it's for download, I can pull it up into a spectral analyzer. But let's give it a listen. Hopefully there's no ads. Let's see how you did. So far, you got pretty good, decent numbers on it for just finishing it. So let's take a listen.
Take me to a place I've never known. Baby, don't you leave me all alone. I just lay staring at the ceiling, dreaming of the days we had it all. I can't come up with a single reason. Oh, can't shake this feeling. Don't say you're leaving. Feel my heart beat.
All right. No. No, don't do that. All right. So, really like the song. Really like what you have. The mix right now. Like it's basically done. Mix and master done. There's very little I would probably do to it, except for this might be more so in the mix. Um, There's one point in particular that I noticed this, so that it repeats throughout the song a couple times. Um, when you're doing your build right before your drop, like probably the last two bars, basically where you would do a fill, I noticed that there wasn't uh, there wasn't a good contrast between the sections. So like at the 1 minute mark of the song, when you're first introducing the drop, your drop should hit so much harder, and it would, um, if you just had more of a contrast between the silence that should be like maybe within the last bar or two before and the drop actually hits. You do this when you do the first fill within the drop at about 1 minute 17. Um, so it could be that it could be a compositional thing. On the mixing side, the suggestions that I would make with that would be to try to either automate, uh, do like an EQ sweep, to do like a high pass filter sweep to kind of clear up some of those lower frequencies, and that way, when the next part of the drop hits again after the fill, or when the drop hits after the build, there's been some silence in that low end, and then it's replenished by the drop hitting again. Otherwise, that's really the biggest tip I would say. The mix as it is, great job with it. Um, your song still is dynamic. I would argue you could make it slightly more dynamic and still have this same, you know, high tempo EDM style track, but this is more to taste. This is more like the sweet spot, and I'm not sure what you're using on your effects chains. So, it also could just be the plugins or hardware, if you are using it, that you're using that contributes to that sound. But great job. I would say this is ready to go. Like you're, like you've already released it 6 days ago. Like great job. This is good. All right, on to the next. Now, this is Art of 15 here, but they were the artists formerly known as Art of 15. They are now known as Dashes, and this is a project inspired by Porter Robinson. It's the Touch Grass EP. So it's 3 tracks for a potential EP. Unfortunately, I do not have the time to listen to all 3 of them today. However, if you wanted that feedback on all 3, I'll tell you about the Weekly WAV after I give you feedback. So I've already pre-listened to a little bit of the 3 songs in the project, and I'm going to tell you which I'm going to pick after I read what you're asking for. So you're asking for questions about the mix, what stands out, good or bad, sound design. I'll put sound selection in there, what stands out, good and bad. Vocals, is your first time singing, areas for improvement. Unfortunately, I am not vocally trained, so won't be able to necessarily give you the best feedback in terms of that. However, I will judge it in how you try to emulate, Porter Robinson, since this is a Porter Robinson style project. So that's going to be like my primary barometer when it comes to vocals, and then any other secondary commentary is just going to be about how I feel about it. So, and then bonus, we'll see if I do that too. See if I have time to do that at the end. All right. So The song that I selected is actually going to be Touch Grass. I think obviously it is the song that really lets us know this is a Porter Robinson style track, and so we're going to go ahead and give it a listen.
Just admit to all your flaws. Heard it many times before. Just surrender and submit, but don't be a ball.
Insecurities again. You think I would learn from my past? Think I should go outside and touch grass?
So it's over now. We are far from the beginning. If I hold you now, tell me one thing. How many self-destructing thoughts will flow by before I will listen to the ones that really matter? Can't be perfect. Sabotage follows me closely. Oh, I am not ready to be loved. Instead, I'm saying
Insecurities again. You think I would learn from my past? Think I should go outside and touch grass?
go outside, touch grass. Go outside, touch grass. Go outside, touch grass.
If I gave you my love, would you spare me?
All right. So, first question you had was how the mix was. I would argue that your mix isn't bad. It's not in a bad place. In fact, there's for the most part the sound selection that you've picked and your sound design has made it so that wherever you've gotten some of your sounds from, they're pretty high quality. So they're already it's almost like you've got a pretty good mix already loaded up in there just from the sounds that you selected. So that's pretty good with that, I'd say. Um, what is really good that I liked as well too were your vocals. Whatever effects chains that you have for your main robotic Porter-esque vocal, really enjoyed that. I would also like to see, as I was listening to it, I wanted to hear some distortion, like some bit crush distortion, like I believe it's like oh man, how am I forgetting the song? Like Sad Machine, like there's a little distortion in some of the vocals there. Like that's what I was kind of wanted to hear at like the bridge portion. As far as your own vocals and the way that you mixed it in, I like the slight reverb that you did with that as well. Um, I don't know if you had an overall reverb, but if you had a main reverb, I would suggest putting a little bit of, like as a send, sending a little bit of that vocal reverb or that main reverb to the vocal, just so it still fits like it sounds like it sits in there. Your robotic vocal fits very well with your mix, but your own vocal still sounds like it's sticking out. And it could be because there might be some additional frequencies in the mix, but it could also be because that you have your vocal with this other reverb, but not the main reverb. So doing that should make it sound like it softens a bit more into the mix, and that's almost what I want to hear with your vocal. I want your vocal to, and maybe this is something you could do as well too. Um, Try doubling your vocal take. Uh, doubling it up so it creates or adds saturation so it beefs up just a little bit, not a whole lot. If you did the vocal thing, I would suggest you to do it as a slightly lower volume, like maybe, I don't know, I couldn't think of it because I want to know what how you recorded it, but that's what you could do as well. Going back to how the sound design was, the sound selection was great. I had mentioned that I wanted to hear some distortion, like some bit crush on the vocals. I'm thinking that I also wanted to hear, not thinking, I know I wanted to hear, I wanted to hear some other synths in your drops. I like the way that you have it styled, especially the first one. It is kind of, especially within the last, I'd say, 7 years, that style of doing a short, like 4-bar drop, and then like that's the teaser to the main drop at the end. I really like that style, especially for like future bass and melodic dubstep. But another thing that I wanted to go back on the mix about was that there wasn't a lot of contrast between your sections. So I would suggest doing like some type of either removing elements or some type of filtering out of elements or frequencies to just signal that you're moving on to another section, or even, well, you didn't want to use white noise, but just like I would suggest an EQ or filtering out of elements, just so that it also helps us move to each individual section. It might not be as important with your build going into your drop, although you might want to start with a filtered portion, or some type of filtered element coming in with that main build for the drop at the end, just to create some contrast and tension. That's the one thing that's missing with this track, really, is that you have some what I would call anchor points towards the end of your, primarily, like we can see with this waveform here. I believe the drop starts here. Your intro going into your build, like that's a good anchor point there. You have another one going into your beginning of the drop here, or beginning of the build here. So you know how to create those anchor points. It's just about reinforcing them. And when I think about reinforcing those anchor points, you're just increasing the tension. And how you could do that is by a variety of different ways. If you went back into your arrangement, that could be taking away a few, or like I said, filtering in a few elements, or even taking away a few elements as well too, depending on what you have. You might have different textures in there, and then gradually bringing them back in right before the drop. It's about creating. You don't want it to be that your build is loud after your verse was loud and now your drop is loud, because then it's just one loud long waveform, almost like what you have here. There are a few spots, like I said, where I can pick out where, even when I was listening, where there are anchor points and where there should be anchor points for you to create tension through, whether that's removing elements by filtering, EQing, or by actually, removing them. Otherwise, really enjoyed this project. This goes for you as well as Hype Machine. If you two want personalized feedback, I've got a community of 30 plus producers that are all making music. Um, it's the Weekly WAV. The goal is for you to make a song in a week, at least a song in a week. I think anyone can do that. Even if you don't believe that you can, like myself. Isn't that funny? I don't believe that I can. I think I can, and I will, because I have. If you want to see some of what I'm doing, I would suggest you go down. I'm going to put my Instagram, I'm going to link my Instagram down there, as well as the Weekly Wave community. Come see us over there if you are trying to make more music. If you want to make more music this year, look, it's June. You can put out, if you made a song in a week for the next 6 months, what's the math on that? 24 songs for the rest of the year? Boom. Like, if you never thought that you could be a prolific producer, come join the Weekly Wave community. 30 plus producers. I've got content going on the Instagram. You've probably seen some of it. It's very Adult Swim-like. I don't know, what else? Face cam reveal coming soon? It's gotta be coming soon. You know, it's gonna be coming soon. I just have to get the setup right. Right now, little behind the scenes, I use Outplayed, and just for the sake of ease. But I've recorded and streamed with OBS before. Just need some stability. Anyway, thank you so much for submitting your music here. Not that this community will give me thanks for giving you feedback, but I will see you all in the next episode of the Music Producer Revolution. Take care.